Hi, everyone. Welcome to Your Money Map, sponsored by the Alliance for Lifetime Income. I'm your host, Jean Chatzky. Very glad to have you along with me today. As you can see, we have entitled this show "The Yellow Brick Road to Financial Freedom." We're gonna be talking about retirement planning ideas for the LGBTQ plus community. And when we talk about retirement, we often talk about retirement with a big R, as if one size fits all. And just like the rest of your financial life, one size almost never fits all. I like to say that personal finance is more personal than finance. And that is true, particularly for communities that have often been marginalized, that have different needs. And we can cut this pie in a lot of different ways. But whether we're talking about the gay community or single people or women or people who don't have kids or people who do have kids or people who have aging parents, it's always a bit of a different sort of puzzle to piece together. And so today we are going to be focusing on the issues that hit home for members of the LGBTQ plus community most often. And we're going to do it with a terrific guest. David Ray is my guest. He is a certified financial planner. He's an accredited investment fiduciary. He is president of DRM Wealth Management, and he has a specialty in planning for the gay community, but also for women. He's worked a number of years with single women as well, and he is here today to talk with us about all of these issues. In fact, he's joining us from his home in Palm Springs. So let me just say welcome to you, David. I'm very happy to have you here and a little jealous of your location.
Thanks for having me. And it's a little cold here in Palm Springs, so don't be too
Oh,
jealous. It's like 62.
oh, oh, my heart bleeds. Um,
I'll have to heat up the pool.
Exactly. Here in Philadelphia, as I look out the window, it's gray, it's rainy, it's in the 30s. I have absolutely no sympathy. So, the Alliance for Lifetime Income, our sponsor, just wrapped up its sponsorship of Elton John's Yellow Brick Road tour in North America. I got a chance to see one of the shows. It was incredible. It
He's
was
so amazing. The concert was
phenomenal.
amazing, right?
He is, and although Elton is saying farewell to touring, he's not retiring from life. He's planning on focusing on his foundation, spending time with his family, new creative music projects, and basically he is, I think, somewhat of a symbol that retirement today is not slowing down necessarily. It's just the next act. And it's a next act that could last 20 years, 30 years, maybe more. What have you noticed in the retirement trends, specifically that you're seeing in the gay community?
I think Elton's a great example here because, to your point, he's retiring from touring. I don't think we're not going to hear another single from him. I mean, he has a #1 hit around the world with Britney Spears, and who'd have thought that would be the case in his 70s? He also has younger, relatively young children with his husband David. So, he's still raising children in his 70s, which is probably more common in the gay community than you might think. Maybe hopefully as a financial planner, I'd like you to start a little younger, but Elton again has some different things going on in his life. And we often are finding our second acts. A lot of people that I work with in the gay community are retiring from one career or adjusting career or just taking more control. As we saw a lot of workers during COVID, or said, I'm not going to the office 5 days a week. I'm not commuting 2 hours round trip, and finding ways to maybe work a little less or have a little more time off or just enjoy life a little bit more along the way. And there's so many ways that you can retire without completely quitting work.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and it's something that I can identify with personally. I look forward to retirement at some point. I also look forward to figuring out how work fits into retirement for me, both from a sense of purpose, but also from a sense of my finances. I should remind everyone, these shows are a conversation. We welcome you, no matter where you are in the country or in the world, into this conversation. If you've got a question or a comment for me or for David, please post it in the chat. We know we're with you on LinkedIn and Facebook, and we are here. We're here to engage and to talk. When we look at what's happening, in the gay community right now, I know there is a sense that the community feels, rightly so, under attack once again. Try to, frame it for me. How do you think, how do you think that people are feeling in general, and how are they feeling about their retirement?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking just generally, I think there's the best of times and the worst of times. I think I've told you before that it's probably the best time to be an out, proud LGBTQ plus person in America. But at the same time, with that, we're more visible, which means we're more likely to be targeted. And I think some people that maybe are just maybe anti-gay at home are feeling more emboldened recently to come after our community. And many people in the community are also Jewish or people of color or women, and we can go down the list. So they're getting double whammies of misogyny, racism, anti-Semitism, as well as homophobia. So which really can make life difficult. But at the same time, we're more represented in TV. We have more rights. Not that it matters that we're on TV, but it
It
when I was
does.
coming out, there was no, who I didn't see myself in anything. So people are able to see themselves more. The Senate just voted to codify marriage, which is huge and is expected to pass the House. So, there was some fear a few months ago from one of the justices that marriage might be up for debate again. And I'm happily married, and I want to stay happily married. That's a personal choice, I guess, but it'd be terrible if the government was just taking away my right to be married. And I know a lot of people around me felt very concerned about that. Um, with the election, there was a lot of people looking for maybe a second passport, or where do they move if things were to go terribly wrong in the election. And without talking too much politics here, I think many in the gay community were relatively happy with many of the general results there. But I think coming up on retirement, we have the same concerns as the general population, but some of ours are a little more intense. I think I mentioned before that there's probably a generation that's missing because of HIV. A lot of those people would have been retiring around this time. So we just didn't have a generation that we were seeing ahead of us retire, or some of the challenges that people when they retire would be facing. And so we didn't get a chance to learn from those and fix the mistakes 15, 20 years ago when it really would have been helpful.
I think one thing that many people can relate to is that, the generation that faced HIV and came through that period of time may not have thought that they were looking at a particularly long life, and so feel like they have not done enough to save for the retirement that they perhaps didn't think that they were going to have, and now do fortunately get to have. How do you from a planning perspective deal with those late starts?
So I've met quite a few people over the years. I've done the AIDS Life Cycle, which is a big charity event of riding your bike from San Fran to LA to fight HIV and AIDS. And I meet a lot of people through that. They're like, I was told I had days to live in the 80s. And obviously we're well past the 80s and they're still alive and they're facing retirement. Luckily, they have had some time to play catch up a little bit, but there was a big gap there where they maybe cashed out 10 or 20 years of retirement accounts, or they just never started a retirement account because, yeah, I didn't pass away in the 80s, but I still wasn't expecting to make it to retirement, or wasn't expecting to have the long life expectancy. And the bad news is they're probably behind on retirement. The good news is that the life expectancy with today's medicine is probably very similar to someone who doesn't have HIV, generally speaking. But there's no day that's too late to start. There's always ways to improve your retirement. Anyone here listening can improve their retirement. Even if you're set and you have all the money you need, there's still other things you could be doing to improve your retirement. If you're just starting out and maybe you're 65 and have $0 there, we're probably going to need to look some ways to cut expenses, or do some drastic adjustments to your lifestyle, most likely. But you can still improve retirement, and it's much better than putting your head in the sand and trying to live off of Social Security, which I believe the average check is something like $1,500 a month. And I don't know about you, but I don't know where I'd get an apartment that I could pay the rent on for just that. So
No, we know Social Security replaces on average about 40% of pre-retirement income for people, and it's really, really difficult to live on that. I'm always surprised when I see the statistics about how much of a difference just working an extra 6 months to a year, maybe even 2, could
Yeah.
actually make to your fortunes going forward.
It really does add up there, and the math really is on your side of delaying Social Security if possible. And I think, unfortunately, it may not be the answer you want to hear, but if you're behind on retirement, working a little longer is probably going to be the best way to catch up. It gives you either more time to save. It means your Social Security goes up pretty substantially. One, because you're paying in more, and two, you're taking it at a later date, which bumps up your benefits quite substantially.
Gallup recently did a survey and looked at the percentage of people who identify as LGBTQ plus, found that the number has gone up to a new high of 7.1%. That is actually double the percentage from 2012.
Amazing.
Um, great, right? So when we look at that population, we know a few things about them. We've got more people who are unpartnered, who
Yeah.
are solo agers. That's what we call them. More people who don't have children. Can you talk about the issues facing people who will be likely facing retirement by themselves?
Retirement's a lot more expensive, unfortunately, when you retire single. It may not seem that way, but most things that we're paying for aren't double the cost when there's two people. So, your rent's going to be the same whether there's two people in the house, or your mortgage, or your property taxes, and all those utilities pretty much are basically the same whether you're single or married, and you're kind of splitting it across two people. Also, there's someone to care for you. There's someone to enjoy your life with, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there's probably some people who like to travel. Um, I was looking at a cruise with some friends. Who are like, oh, our single friend would have to pay the same as the couple would for the same room, and it's the single supplement is basically two people, and that just means they're spending more to do things they want to be doing. And I know that's on the high end and the fun part of retirement more than just living expenses, but there's just a lot of things you don't think about that having children or having a significant other are covered. Driving you to the doctor appointments, or just making sure that you're being taken care of, or that just keeping an eye on you.
So how do you dot the I's and cross the T's? And let's talk specifically about, how do you get on a plan to know that you're saving enough? How do you know that your basic needs have been taken care of for things like a healthcare proxy or an executor? AARP recently conducted a survey, and the numbers of solo agers in the LGBTQ plus community are large. They found 57% of gay men over the age of 45 reported to being single, 39% of lesbians, 48% of bisexual men and women. Is that essentially they're twice as likely to be single and 4 times as likely not to have children.
So you really want to look at your chosen family, is kind of how I describe it. I love the show Golden Girls. I'm sure some of the people watching this probably do as well. You may want to look at maybe partnering up with a roommate situation. Not just, you may not even need it financially, but it's just nice to have someone that's there. And I'm finding a lot of people that do kind of shack up, monogam, not sexually, sorry, and just have a roommate situation there. But also, retirement planning really is going to fall on your shoulders. There's no one that's going to come save you. There's not a Prince Charming or Princess Charming that's going to come in and help you catch up for retirement. You're going to need to plan ahead, work with a financial advisor to make sure you're saving enough, that you're going to have enough, because it may seem like there's a ton of money in that 401k, but when you have to live off of for 20 or 30 years, it probably isn't really as much as you think there is.
Yeah. No, I think that's very true, and I, for the record, am so gonna be a golden girl.
That's a good
I
point,
talk
by the
about
way.
this with my girlfriends, and the thing about being a woman is knowing that sadly, it's quite likely that we're gonna get to the end of the road, all of the guys are gonna die, and we're gonna be, living in maybe Florida, maybe California, maybe somewhere warm, with our girlfriends, and that is just I think that's just something to put in your plan as well. You mentioned work with a financial advisor, and that's something that we talk about a lot on this show. You're a financial advisor who has a large gay clientele. Tell us about the differences. How do you what does it mean to have a specialty in working with LGBTQ plus folks? What is it how is your practice different?
Well, I think at the most basic level, I'm just making it more fun and I get what they're talking about when they said, I want to take this trip or I want to do this, or I'm really looking at the scenarios like you don't have children, or if you, even if you do have children, if you're going to have a surrogate, or just things that we need to do legally. And luckily, marriage equality has really helped bring a lot of the rights to the community. But when I first started, we had to recreate all the benefits of marriage through estate planning, through legal documents. And it was costly and timely and just, let's be real, not fun thing to be doing. And not everyone's married, so just to be clear there. But if you are married, there's just a certain assumption of things that will happen, and your money would go to your spouse. Well, if you're not married, you could be there 50 years living on the house together, and you die, they're going to assume your homophobic cousin in Arkansas or some other. Sorry, no offense to Arkansas. Anywhere here watching, maybe somewhere in California even, um, is going to get your money because there's nothing in writing and nothing relating you to this person. There's also adoption or stepchildren situations where if there's nothing in writing, you as their parent have no real legal rights. So it's just kind of figuring those things out and then just kind of feeling comfortable. I have had people who were single with a financial advisor they loved, and they got married and brought in their same-sex spouse, and quickly their meeting was canceled. And this is happening in California, so I don't want to bash. It happens everywhere, unfortunately. But there are people out there in our industry that are a little more conservative and just don't want to work with gay couples. And while I don't like the homophobia there, I do like that if you're not comfortable and you don't want to work with us, you maybe tell someone and they can go find an advisor that's really going to give them the best advice for their situation. And it can be uncomfortable to come out to your financial advisor, unfortunately.
But it's problematic if you don't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because right now, especially I brought up marriage equality. Well, if I give you advice and you don't tell me that you're married, that's going to change all of these assumptions quite a bit. Or if I don't know you have children, or if I don't really know what you want to be doing, you don't want to tell me that you want to take all these different trips. Well, the plan's going to be very different.
Right, it argues for finding a financial advisor, and I think that this is part of the challenge for everyone. Finding a financial advisor with whom you can be your open, honest, authentic self, right? Um, if you want to give all your money to a particular charity, and you don't tell your financial advisor that that is the goal that you're working toward, it's going to be very, very difficult to make that happen. And so, I guess my question is, how do you find a financial advisor who is gay friendly? I don't know that there are enough of you out there that specialize in working with the LGBTQ population, but maybe there are.
Well, there are a good number of us. I do think we're very underrepresented. I think our industry has a long way to go. I think it's about 23% women as our certified financial planners. So we're compared to roughly half the population. I believe you guys pulled up, there was like 1,600 people on the certified financial planner find an advisor site that said they specialize in working with the gay community, which is out of 100,000 advisors, a very, very small percentage there. I'd like to see quite a few more. But there are a lot more people that are specializing in the community that are out there. Ask your friends, Google, go to the CFP site. And then there's also a lot of people who maybe don't specialize but are still friendly. If you have other gay friends, they may have an advisor that has been working with it. I meet so many people that their brother or their sister is gay, or their parents are gay, which is also kind of a funny topic. Sometimes you're like, wait, what? But a different generation. A lot of people did get married and have children and then came out later in life. But there are advisors out there, and you deserve the best advice. So just ask around. And if you're not comfortable, or if it doesn't make sense to work with your advisor, find one that does work for you. And that's the same for women or people of color or different religions or even just professions.
Yeah, yeah, you need to find somebody who understands your needs, your issues, and who I think is emotionally intelligent enough to ask the questions that can elicit the responses to get you to reveal or at least understand what it is you really want, because sometimes I think we don't understand our own financial wants and needs.
It does come up quite a bit because I'm dealing with a lot of people that are the baby boomers that maybe are estranged from their family, and they kind of missed out those lessons from their parents. Not that we all were taught money things, but we all pick up things from our family, our friends, and people around. And if you're estranged from it, you may not see some of the challenges your parents had, or you may not really be aware of some of the healthcare issues or fun that comes up just aging. As we all age, we need to go to the doctor more. Fun stuff. Or just, when to retire or how dynamics change. When we're in a happy marriage and we're both working separately, we probably learned this a little bit during COVID when we're all home together 24 hours a day. Some of our relationships had to change to be together 24 hours a day or working in the next room versus, a few hours in the evening when the rest of the time you're at work or on vacation.
I'm sure that there are a number of people listening who are thinking, well, this is all great, but I don't feel like a financial advisor is for me. And that's a question I like to push back on because I think there is a time in your life where you need advice. There is a time in your life where you need an advisor. How do you talk to people who say, I don't think a financial advisor is for me. I don't think I have enough money. I don't think I'm wealthy enough. Where is the line these days?
There are advisors out there for every asset level, for every place in life. And there's also different advisors that have different business models. So you may want just a check in to be like, are we on this right path or is my 401k set up properly? If you're just starting out, someone sat me down at 22 before I was a financial planner and I had to put $25 a month into my Roth IRA. That really set the habit. And within a year, I was a financial planner. So we upped that substantially, but that was back at 22 without a job. That was a big number. And it helped me at the time. I definitely was not someone that should have a full big planner or go to my parents' stockbroker that they had at the time, which whole nother story there. But you can have someone that can check in. And there's also things you might be missing, or you may really enjoy handling your finances. But when you enter retirement, I was just talking to a couple that's like, we love doing this stuff, but we want to retire and not have to do it anymore. They want to be, when we're on safari, I don't want to have to be checking the market or worried about my portfolios. And we talked to them, and also in this case, they doing it themselves missed a tax deduction that would cost them
Mm,
about $100,000. So yes, they didn't pay an advisor last year, but they lost $100,000 in taxes. So
you do the math.
you do the math, and that we could actually, if I wanted to pour a little salt, it missed this deduction for multiple years. So it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And most things aren't that extreme, but there are just times when, especially this year's been a tough year in the stock market, you may think, well, maybe let me pull this all out. And I've seen people pull money. It's one thing bad enough to pull it out of the stock market. It's another thing if you pull it out of your 401k or retirement account and then get a tax bill plus a 10% penalty, which I've unfortunately seen people do over the years. And you took what was $1 million account and you just cost yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes by just clicking the wrong box. So there's a lot of value that can be added. There's a lot of peace of mind, and some of it's just emotional stuff. If you are in a couple, and unfortunately, well, we statistically only a third of us are in a couple, I guess, or however that works out. But um, there are different choices on when you guys want to retire, what you want to be doing, and a financial advisor and a financial planner can really help you get on the same page with your partner and figure out what you want to be doing, what's possible, and make sure, I get to be the bad guy when it's like, you need to save more money. I can pretend I'm going to come to Starbucks and slap it out of your hand to save that extra $5 every day.
Oh, I actually don't think it's about the extra $5 at Starbucks, right? I think it's about the bigger choices much of the time. And surveys are telling us that wealth creation seems to be happening faster in the LGBTQ plus community than it is in the general population. Now, why do you think that's happening? And also for those people who are creating wealth, what's the playbook for managing it wisely?
There's a couple of things that are really advantages for the gay community. There's quite often we have more people that are dual income households, so more money makes it much easier to save. I'm going to go on a limb there, and we can talk all financial stuff all you want, but if you make more money, it's easier to save. It doesn't mean you will. I've met people making millions of dollars that have gone broke while still making millions of dollars. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. And there's people making 30,000 that are still able to save money, which kind of amazes me. But we also have less likely to have children, so. While children are a blessing in many households, they are an expense. College is expensive. So if we take some of those things out, there's just a lot more money available to do it. And there are a lot of people who are really living great lives and working hard and making good incomes in the gay community and are putting it to work. And if you have a planner or you're doing it yourself and you put money away and you just keep saving, It's really not that complicated to build wealth, in my opinion. There's ways to tweak it and do it better. There's ways to be more efficient. And there's ways to make it easier and happier, but it's still not that complicated, in my opinion.
One of the big challenges is long-term care, and particularly for, those people who don't have partners, don't have spouses. We know again from research that members of the gay community are about a third more likely to be worried or concerned about the costs of long-term care, and let's put into this bucket the cost of simply making your money last as long as you do. We talk a lot about this show about the need for protected lifetime income, for knowing that in addition to Social Security, you'll have enough to be able to continue to live life as you want to live it, no matter how long your retirement lasts. How are you solving for both of these issues, for both the need for protected lifetime income, but also the need for long-term care?
Absolutely. Great question, because I do think people in the gay community, especially single and childless people, are going to have a much bigger need for that long term care piece of it. And you're also going to have a much bigger need for lifetime income that's guaranteed, because you may live a lot longer than you think. And this is a client of mine was just taking his mother, or was looking around for his mother for assisted living. Well, his mother's not able to look for this type of thing on her own. If she was single, no kids, and didn't have someone helping her, she'd probably stop dying slowly in her apartment. And you would have one of these horror stories where someone's found days
Oh,
later. I'm
boy.
not.
I
I
don't
hate to
even
make
wanna
light
think
of it,
about
but
it, right?
I'm picturing some of these situations where it's like you hear these horror stories. But luckily, she has a child to help her. But for the gay community that's single, we're gonna have to put extra effort into having an advisor that makes sure that there's someone still watching our investments, because you may be an investment guru now, but you retire and 20 years down the road, you're not with it. Because I do have clients who were in the financial industry, were traders on Wall Street their entire careers, but they're like, they don't want to do that now, or they know their wife won't be able to do it, or the spouse or their husband won't be able to do it when they're not around. So it's just making sure that you have a plan in place. It does add some of the value to an advisor in these scenarios. And I do think having a baseline of guaranteed income between Social Security and something else to make sure that your at least your base living expenses are going to be covered, even if you live to 120 and you're not having to eat cat or dog food.
So that could take the form of an annuity if you don't have a pension.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately most of us don't have a pension unless you're self-employed, and I'm setting it up for you.
Exactly, exactly. We're talking a lot about talk to your advisor, talk to your advisor, talk to your advisor. Data shows that members of the LGBTQ plus community don't use advisors as much as other communities. Why do you think that is?
I think there is the stigma that you'd have to have a huge amount of money. I think a lot of the basic triggers are getting married or having a child. For the general population, like, oh, we should get a financial advisor. We're pregnant. We don't generally have a surprise we're pregnant on our side. It's usually well planned and quite expensive if we're hiring a
Yeah.
surrogate or adopting. I'm just going to go on in there. If anyone wants to correct me on that, please do. But there's also a little bit of stigma. The industry is older and wider, which you can guess where that leads some of the statistics politically there. And there's a lot of people who've been turned away, or even just the dollar side of it. There's a lot of people in the community who just don't feel they have enough wealth, and it's amazing who calls me with that. And they're like, "We only have $10 million. We don't have enough wealth." I'm like, "You can get an advisor. You may have called the wrong advisor there." And there's people that you can get it at much smaller levels. And I know there's a great crop of new younger advisors that are coming in that kind of do like one-off, sit down with you and make sure you're on track, make sure here's the things that you're doing now that you're getting married or you're turning 30 or you're 35, and you really can find someone that's going to work with you where you're at. And unfortunately, I do want more of the community to find a great advisor, and that's going to help them for the long term.
Yeah, I love this idea, even if you don't have an advisor who is part of your routine, right? Who's on the payroll, so to speak,
Yeah.
that you could do a check-in every 5 years, every decade, and make sure if you're a do-it-yourselfer that you are actually doing it right, and this is particularly important, 10 years out from retirement, specifically if you've never done it before, because that last 10 years, which tend to be your highest earning years, give you a lot of runway to make up for things that you just haven't done otherwise. And I think you should do the same with an estate planning attorney and maybe a tax advisor, just to make sure that you're not missing that $100,000 deduction, which, by the way, is kind of horrifying. Um, and make sure that you are capturing all of the benefits that are available to you. This audience, I think, is like me in that they really like the tactical. So let's talk about, as we sort of head into the home stretch here, the top 3 to 5 things that you think people should be doing, members of the LGBTQ plus community should be doing to take stock, to put themselves on the right track, and to plan for a protected income in retirement.
I would say first off, just take a serious look at where you're at now. Are you saving money for retirement? Or do you have a nest egg? Or are you sitting in student loan debt or credit card debt? And just kind of get a sense of where you're at now. And you may be it may be a very small amount of savings, but if you're putting or a retirement account, but if you're putting in a good percentage, compound interest really, really can work in your favor. So get started. Make sure you're putting money in your retirement account. At the absolute bare minimum, I tell everyone, no matter your situation, get the employer match in your 401k if you have one. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't, but that's like free money. That still beats paying down your credit cards in my book. And maybe if you're a little older than say 20 something, try and either find an advisor or find like a retirement calculator and kind of see where will what I'm doing get me at retirement. And it may shock you that like, oh, I can't live on $20,000 or 50, or you might be like, oh, amazing, I'm going to be, bajillionaire at retirement. Hopefully, some good news there, just to get a sense of where this really turns into, what you're doing will turn into at a later age, and then just be aware of certain things as you brought up a great 10 years to retirement. That's really a time you really want to get serious about what retirement's going to look like. You don't have to have an exact, I'm going to do this on this date, but like, I'm going to retire around 10 years. I'd like to be traveling, or I'd like to move, as you mentioned, maybe from the cold. Some of us are, when our spouse passes, I can move to the warm weather. I'm totally kidding there. But looking at what it might look like and going, okay, well, if I'm moving from the Midwest to Los Angeles, that's probably going to be more expensive. But if I'm moving from San Francisco to Palm Springs, probably not as big of a price jump, or Manhattan or some of the big cities. It might still be some price savings. So kind of look at where your money might go. And if you are married and you do have kids and things, make sure your estate planning and your trust documents are in place, because health issues do happen. I unfortunately have a client pass away this year, and luckily they had some medical directives in place. And it's terrible, but the bright side was they had chosen a person to make the decisions on their behalf because they were incapacitated,
Mm.
and their wishes were followed. Is the only bright side I can really look at. And in this case, you brought up charities. They were leaving their life's net worth to a charity that it was very important to them. And luckily, all of those things were in place and in writing, so it got there. Versus they were estranged from their family. It would have been very terrible. They would have been really pissed if it was going to their family members that legally would be obligated to get the money if they hadn't done all these documents.
Such good advice. If you're looking for a financial advisor who is LGBTQ friendly, we actually have resources at our website, protectedincome.org/find dash a dash financial dash professional. A little bit of a mouthful. I'll ask Jenna to put that in the chat so that you can all see it. And you can reach out there. But if somebody is looking for more from you, David, where do they go?
The best place is my blog, which is financialplannerla.com. And I have clients around the world, so you can all reach out. But there's ways to reach me through there, and you can see some of my writing and some more advice that can maybe help you stay on track for your financial goals there.
Amazing. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And if you're looking for more about protected income in general, or for additional resources about this conversation, you can always find them on the website of the Alliance for Lifetime Income at protectedincome.org. We will see you all next time. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.